Today's guest is Brian Cox. Brian is a husband, a father, a leader, and a man who walked away from a stable job to follow a different kind of calling. Brian started in church work, earned his degree in Christian leadership, and now runs his own business, Blue Water Pool Service, where faith fuels everything he does. He's battled through valleys, led through COVID, and built a mission-driven life centered on Christ, clarity, and serving others. Brian, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks, buddy.
Where did you grow up, and what was your life like in your hometown?
So, I grew up military, so I just moved around a lot. But it was cool. Got to see a bunch of different things, live at a bunch of different places. But all my family lives in Mississippi, but I barely ever lived there. So kind of moved into Enterprise once we got a little bit into my youth. I think it was like 7th, 8th grade. We moved to Enterprise, and then ended up moving to Korea in the middle of high school, moved back, and I've been here ever since. So.
What was life like in Korea?
It was interesting.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool for about 8 months. Then after that, you're like, bring me back to the homeland. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't like Korean food. McDonald's is getting old. So, it was interesting. I mean, just a culture shock, you know.
Yeah.
But once you kind of get used to it, you just kind of start missing good old USA.
Yeah.
So growing up, what did you like to do as a kid? I mean, did you always see yourself as a business owner, or what did you think you wanted to do growing up?
I feel like early on, I felt like I wanted to do something in the ministry, like as a kid and stuff. Once I got a little bit older, when I started in my youth group back when I was like in 8th, 9th grade or so, actually probably a little younger than that. Yeah, probably 8th grade, started shooting videos and stuff like in the youth group, like screwing around. And then kind of fell into that. Kind of after that, when we moved to Korea, I kind of leaned into learning that type of thing, learn how to make videos and stuff, and that's kind of what led me into that realm. So when I moved back to America, the US of A, and I got done with high school, ended up getting into that with the church. So I feel like that's kind of what led me into that field. During that kind of time period, it was like the 2010s, you know, early teens. I was kind of like learning about Hillsong Church and all those big churches and stuff, and I was in Korea. And I was kind of excited to get back because I just thought, you know, at that young age, I kind of like bought into like, I don't want to say I bought into like an idealistic version of like what a church could be, but, you know, I really believe that people said what they meant, you know, and I really believe that people wanted to, like, why would you get into ministry if you didn't want to do it to glorify God, you know, and to reach as many people as possible and to help disciple people, right? So going into church, I kind of went in with that perspective of like this naive idea that like it was all going to be for Jesus. You know, pretty quickly figured out that wasn't the case. But learned that lesson, I guess, the hard way. But that's a whole huge part of why I am who I am now. You know, so I wouldn't change it. But I think I was there 3 years before the whole thing fell apart. You know, there was a movement for some change within the church, and then there was just like not a very good foundation. You know, so as the change started, it just couldn't handle it, and you know, there's poor leadership decisions made, and the whole church fell apart. I ended up leaving, and I was pretty hurt by that, you know, but I feel like walking away from there, I knew I was going to be okay. You know, I was like processing it, knowing I'm going to be fine. Like, the world didn't end. You know, it sucks, and it wasn't fun. But the biggest thing I was walking away with that thinking, though, is like, but other people might not be, you know what I mean? And they don't even know what happened, you know? And like, people are going to watch this church fall apart and go to nothing, and they're not even going to know why or what transpired. You know what I mean? This might turn people from Jesus, right? So that was pretty upsetting, you know, like, but the biggest thing I kind of learned from that is like, man, if one guy like can really lead something in this direction, into this place, leadership's probably pretty important. You know?
Yeah.
Like, if one guy can really like kind of screw this up this bad. Like, I should probably learn from that mistake. So that was kind of my real, I don't want to say introduction, but that was like my real drive into like learning leadership and like investing time into studying it was watching somebody royally screw it up and not wanting to be that guy, you know? So post that, worked at a buddy's screen printing shop, ended up working for a t-shirt company. And during that time period, I was really reading a lot of leadership books. And that's kind of what brought me into leadership, like learning and studying leadership. Yeah.
So was that video job your first job?
So yeah, that church I was doing basically video, but like, you know, small
Everything.
church stuff. So like graphics, helping with audio, whatever, you know, and just kind of doing everything. And it was small, you know, a small church, but yeah, that was my first job. Second job was screen printing place. Third job was t-shirt company.
Did you have any mentors early on that influenced you in what you did?
No, that's a good question. I feel like at every stage of my life, I've had like a key mentor, you know, and at the very beginning, going to that church job, it was like my youth pastor. He was the guy who ended up hiring me at that church to do all the video and stuff. And he was my mentor at that point. You know, he really taught me everything I knew. And I would say I attribute a lot to him as far as my, he taught me a lot of foundational things, which is ironic considering, you know, I was at a very foundational part of my life. And then, you know what I mean? It paved the way for a lot of who I am today, you know, and a lot of that's just you know, being who you say you are, you know, just the core root basics, you know, being who you say you are, actually loving God, you know, actually trying to do the right thing, you know what I mean? Like, he just had a way, like when that whole church fell apart, he was not like a people pleaser in the sense that like he just did things to avoid discomfort. You know, he actually addressed things and wasn't a pushover, you know.
Yeah.
But when he left, it was felt in the organization. You know, like it actually meant something because the entire time he was there, he always preserved relationships, and he chose his battles very well, you know. And so for me, I was like, you know, 18, so I wasn't choosing my battles very well. but he obviously had a little bit more wisdom than I did. But I would say, yeah, 100%. I mean, like he was super foundational, same as Chad Boswell. But so he was incremental, I feel like, in my life for sure at that time. Moving past that, I mean, I feel like there's other people, you know, that were in my life, you know, earlier to that and stuff that I feel like I contribute small things to. But I mean, moving past that, I mean, there's people that I work for. Like I always try to learn everything I can from them, you know, and even that t-shirt company I worked at, you know, like me and him like didn't 100% vibe on the same page, you know, when all was said and done. But I learned a lot from him in the time that I was there, you know, and his ability just to like make decisions based on the math. Like if it mathed, he was just like, let's do it. You know what I mean? And that really paved the way for like the type of leader I am now in my business of just like, hey, if it like paved the way, I guess, for the beginning part of my business where it's like, hey man, on the sheet of paper, it works out. Let's just go for it. You know what I mean? Like, why not? You know what I mean? Like if it works, it works. Like if we think it's going to work, it looks like it works. Let's just trust it works. You know, I learned a lot about taking risks and just making moves because that's what he did, you know, and that's the type of thing you really need to understand. I feel like when you're really starting a business, if you wanted to grow quick, it's just being able to like take the bet on what you're doing and just go for it, you know, even if it's not a money bet. Most of the time, I feel like with small business, it's not like a huge, at least with mine, it wasn't a huge cash up front. Like I got to put $50,000 on this thing. It was just, hey, this seems like it's working. Well, let's buy the truck. Let's do this thing. You know what I mean? Just, all right, well, hey, we're here. Let's go do the thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's what we need to. Let's go get it, you know? And just taking the one step at a time, you know? So
how'd you get to the point to where you wanted to open up your own business and start Blue Water? What made you choose pools?
So I feel like So I worked at the church for, or, you know, High Point for, I think it was 8 years total that I worked there. But, you know, part of it was part-time at the end. So let's say year 6 or 7, we went through the whole COVID thing. During COVID, I feel like I really kind of like stepped up in a way, you know what I mean? At least like internally in myself, like, and just said I'm not going to be afraid to be a leader. I'm just going to like do what I feel like I need to do. So during COVID did that, and I feel like I learned a lot, you know what I mean, about practically actually leading a team. Led a couple teams there, varying levels of success, but I feel like I was getting to a point where, like, I don't want to say the organization was my lid, but I was hitting a point where I was asking myself the question, where do I really want to go? You know, like what's really in, I don't want to say in this for me because that's not what I'm looking for, but like where, like what am I actually going to do with, I guess I was really looking at it now. In hindsight, I was having like a missional question, like, is this my mission, you know? But at the time, it just kind of felt like, not like, this isn't really what I feel like I should be doing right now, you know? And I had kind of on the side just decided I was going to start a little lawn business or whatever, just to like make some extra money, maybe buy like a rental house or something, you know? Because I have like cooped up energy I need to do something with. But that's kind of where we're at, you know? And me and my wife actually visited, you know, I guess technically Ethan's brother-in-law, not Caden's brother-in-law. I don't know how that works. Brother-in-law. But we had visited Alex and Sabrina in Dallas is where they were at. Mm-hmm. They were doing that internship at, what was the church? Watermark, yeah. And anyways, we went there and we went and visited that, what's their names? They do the fixer-upper people.
Waco.
Chip Gaines and Chip and Joanna Gaines. Mm-hmm. We had visited their thing in Waco, and it was just like, I always went there, and I was kind of like, not like, I mean, I was like, oh, this would be cool, but I wasn't like really having any expectation. But when I got there, I was like, wow, this is like way grander than I thought. Yeah. You know, and it wasn't like, I mean, at the time, I know they got more going now, but at the time, it was like they'd built this little complex of shops, and it was like very picture perfect. And I just didn't realize how much they did outside that too, because I got like their whole warehouse they're shipping out of, and this, that, and the other, you know. And then you start doing research as you do, and you're there, you know, you're looking at it, and you know, I mean, they got like 200 and some employees. I mean, it's not like a small operation, you know. And so I kind of gained some context. I'm like, oh wow, they're actually like doing something, you know. And I've had a lot of respect for the Chip guy because I've like, you know, heard through other people that he's a good person or whatever, you know. Yeah. So I was like, let me read this guy's book, The Capital Gains or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I get his book. We get back home, and I'm actually going to read his book. So it was like one Sunday afternoon after church or something. I just read his book. Casually read the whole thing, you know. I don't really read very much when I read. I just like
read the whole book.
I just read the whole thing. Yeah, I literally did. But so I read the book, and like in it, I literally just like as clear as day felt God speak to me, that I was putting God in a box with what I felt like He could do with my life. You know what I'm saying? And it was because I was feeling this mental battle of like, man, I felt like I want to be in the ministry or whatever, and I felt like the way, I guess, God was going to use me was in the context of the ministry, or the only way I felt like God could use me was in the context of the ministry or something like that. And
working in church.
Say that again?
Like
yeah, working out of church or working in the ministry or something. So I guess, so I read that book, and God really spoke that to me, like pretty clear as day. Like, hey, I can use you however I want to use you. Mm-hmm. You know, it doesn't have to be in the context of ministry. It doesn't have to be this, it doesn't have to be that. I use you wherever I want to use you, however I want to use you. And I just kind of like felt like God challenged me in that, like, okay, like, you know, heard. You know? Yeah. Like, what you want to do with that information, you know? And then, so I'd like, it didn't take long to like spin up a little yard business. So I had like 12 yards or something like that, probably. And the next day, actually, somebody asked me if I did pools. And I have a pool. So I was like, I mean, So I looked at it. I mean, I didn't clean it or anything. I mean, maybe every once in a while, you know, when it got dirty, it started turning green. I'd go out there like anybody else, start tweaking stuff, you know. I'd be in the backyard and backwash filter just because I was there, you know. But typical dad stuff, you know. But so someone asked me if I did pools, and so I was like, yeah, for sure. So I went over there. I'm like Googling, what do you do when you clean a pool on the way to the quote? You know what I mean? Like trying to, like, ChatGPT wasn't even there at the time, so I'm like trying to watch a YouTube video, and lo and behold, it's like the one thing on YouTube no one makes content about. You know what I mean? So I'm like, well, whatever, I'll wing it. So I heard some guy on YouTube throw out some numbers, so I was like, yeah, this much, you know. But I don't even think I got the pool, actually. I think they told me, like, yeah, but then later told me no, but he gave me enough confidence to make, like, a Facebook page, you know, so I was like, I might as well make this legit, you know, so I, like, made a Facebook page, like, a logo in the middle of the night, posted on Facebook, and then I think Sarah's dad, like, shared it in the What's Happening in Enterprise page or something, and I had literally, it was, like, a Saturday, and I got, like, I literally got, like, 14 pools in, like, a weekend.
Wow.
So I was like, okay.
Pretty good.
And Sierra's dad had been telling me I needed to do pools, and I was just kind of like, pools, that sounds like I'll just see the yards. You know what I mean? Like, yards pretty straightforward, you know? He was right? but,
So did you know there's, like, a gap in the enterprise market?
He was telling me that, but I'm like, I don't use pool servers. I'm not paying somebody. I didn't see the value in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At the time. Yeah, I mean, I gained a bunch of pools, and I was just like, okay. And, like, the middle of the day, I just remember looking at Sierra, my wife, and I was just like, I got another call. You know what I mean? I was like, this kind of feels like it's blowing up right now, you know? When your phone doesn't ring at all, and then all of a sudden, like, everybody's calling you, asking you for pool servers. Like, oh, wow, okay. There's real demand here, you know? So, I mean, got that going. I did some mini pools on the week, basically on Fridays when we weren't working, as I could.
So you had Friday off from work at church.
Yeah, so we had Fridays off, so I just started putting them on Friday. Like, yeah, I can do your pool, and we're doing green cleans. I was doing this, that, and the other. I got to maybe 20, and it was just like I couldn't do it anymore. It was just too many, so I hired a young guy to help me out. He didn't really work out very long, but then I hired Rick, who still works for me now. And we rock and roll. We got to about my goal was like 50 for the end of the summer. I started in like June. I think we got to like 43 or something like that we were rolling into January with. Yep. So that was the beginnings. And it was just one of those things where it was like continual confirmation. You know, like you hear that from God. You feel like, you know, and you're like, you and your wife are talking about it, you know, and you're just like, you know, every week you're like, it's just continual confirmation that this is where God's leading you, you know. So we just kept walking down the path.
So what did that look like for you in that first summer? Like, were you cleaning all the pools and contacting everybody? And
you know, at first I'm like, all right, I got to figure something about business. You know what I mean? So I'm like watching business YouTube videos, you know, like trying to figure out like how to run a business, you know. And it would just slowly I just raised my price every time somebody called me too, until somebody told me no. And then what was the question again?
Like
what did operation look like? Yeah. So I mean, I cleaned the pools until I couldn't, and then I would think. I remember I like hired. This is how bad of a leader I was. I like hired this guy to work for me, and like the first day, it was like a Friday because it was like all I did was work on Friday. So he was like coming out on Friday, and the first day I was just like got so sick, could not clean pools. Like I was just like hit the wall, and like bro, like I was like throwing up or something. I was like, just call me at every pool. I literally just sent him out there in my truck. I just like, he called me at every pool. I just like told him what to do. But I mean, I was like bringing water to the pool store at that point. Like I did not even have a test kit. Like we were just.
Yeah. So you had little to no knowledge of pools going into this.
Yeah. I mean, other than like mine, like I know how to backwash
other than doing your own.
I didn't even really know how to vacuum a pool. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'd had my pool for like 6 months at the time. It wasn't like.
Y'all had just bought that house not too long before, too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'd bought that house, renovated it and stuff. So I probably had it for like 9 months, but I only lived in there maybe like 5, you know? So I really took care of the pool. It was like the first summer I really had it. I remember my pool was like green half that summer while I was cleaning everybody else's pools. So you like my neighbor, I'm like, hey, man, there's some shock in there.
You just started the pool business with no experience. basically.
Nah, bro. I think, I heard this one thing on a podcast, kind of lean into it. It's just like ignorance is a superpower.
Yeah.
It's just like because we had no idea what we were doing, we just made it up as we went. And we figured out how to clean pools. Like that's stuff you learn. But like the operations of like how that type of business would run, it's like, in my opinion, I felt like we had a strategic advantage because we didn't know how a pool business should run. So we just did whatever made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and because of that, it's like you realize a lot of businesses do stuff that makes no sense just because that's how they've been doing it.
That's how it's always been done.
Yeah. So we just did what we felt like made sense. We learned as quickly as we could about pools.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's not going to work the same for every single company too. So you've got to kind of make up your own thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's yielded us in a lot of ways now because I was doing it in my backyard until like 14 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We're in our second warehouse now, but it was summer or February of 25 right now? 23 is when we moved into the first warehouse. So it was like a year and 8 months where we're doing it out of my house. And so we didn't have an office. So what did we do? We just like, I'll be there. I'll just come to your yard to give you the quote because you don't have anywhere to come to me. I'll just pick up the payment. You know what I mean? Like that's how we did it, and it's good though because now we're so in the backyard while like our competition maybe with other products, they're not, right? They're just operating out of a store or like something like that. They're just they don't have the capacity to leave where they're at to go in the backyard to give a quote while we're just in the backyard. Yeah. We just built our business around that. We just now have the luxury of having a little lobby.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until customers were showing up, we're like, we should probably make this look better.
It's like, it can't always look like a warehouse.
Yeah, it's like a piece of junk up here. So we should probably get a desk.
At what point did you realize you needed to get a warehouse?
It got to the point, like I would like look on, the property management websites or whatever, and I just always thought it was just like too expensive because I'm just like, be cheap, But, whenever you're like getting pallets of salt delivered into your driveway, just like salt bags driving, like flying on the road, and you need like 6 trash cans to keep up the trash.
Yeah.
My whole like shop was like full of trash. You know what I mean? Like it's just got to the point where this one little one came for sale and it was like a glorified storage unit that had a power outlet. And we're like, we can make this work. It was like $600 a month, something like that. And I mean, we did that, and it was great because all of a sudden I didn't walk out of my backyard first thing in the morning and like see like 5 guys standing in the backyard. You know what I mean? It was like my house was now my house again, and not the business. And that was literally pretty much the decision making factor. It was not like money. It was just like I need to be able to go home and like go home, not like go home and like because I was getting off work, so I was working a full-time job still, and like I would wake up at like 5 a.m., take a shower, go outside, get the day started with the guys, and then I would meet with Joe or whatever, and then I'd go to work. I'd get off at work at lunch, ride with Joe to lunch, get the update, go back to work. Then I'd get off work and go work, and then I'd go home. You know what I mean? So that was like the flow for like a year and a half.
So how did you know it was time to make the decision to walk away from your full-time job and go full in on the business?
Yeah, that wasn't easy, even though I had processed like the idea that this is what I feel like God might want me to do or whatever at the time, a year and a half later, I was still struggling with that. You know what I mean? It's like just because someone tells you something, I guess the Bible says, get wisdom and gain understanding or get insight, and that's kind of where I was at. Like I hadn't had the insight yet. I had the knowledge like God told me, but I hadn't like fully processed it. Mm-hmm. A year and a half later, business was just like getting pretty busy. You know what I mean? And I just was, just felt like, why am I, I have a pretty good job, but why am I like getting more I don't know, called joy or fulfillment out of like the pain of this other thing,
Mm-hmm.
when this is like way more of a pain in the butt,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Than that, you know. And I battle with that, and I just battle with the idea of. I tell you one thing, I think that has served me. It's like I don't know if this is just like my parents beating me into it as a kid, like you're not quitting your football team or whatever, you know.
Mhm.
But it's like I have a really hard time quitting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I just struggle with that. You know what I mean? I struggle with like quitting, feeling like I'm giving up on it or whatever. You know, it'd be, you know, different to just say like, hey, everything was just going good with the business and it was making more money, so I just went and did it. You know what I mean? But it's just like the idea of like quitting and like giving up. It's just hard, you know. And even after I went full time with the business, I worked part time at the church for like another year and a half. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or whatever it was, another year. You know, the process of getting and discovering and making that decision was probably pretty instrumental in my life, I would say. You know what I mean? That's something I'm going to look back the rest of my life, I think, you know. But I did like a mentorship program with this guy, Mac Lake. And it's just like, it was just like a leadership mentor thing, you know. But when I went into it, I was just like, really like, listen, this is my problem. This is what I need to solve, you know.
Yeah.
And it is, I need to figure out what decision I'm going to make right here, you know. And in hindsight, it's like pretty obvious. Like, what are you going to do, bro? Are you going to like close your business, you know?
Yeah.
Or are you going to like keep living in misery? Like, what are you going to do? But at the time, it was a lot harder to make. But he walked me through a process where the first question was basically, well, what is your mission? Like, what are you here to do? And then based on that mission, right, he's going to lead you to a place of what opportunities lead you to the mission. All right, and that's just like anything in our lives, I feel like, in any organization. You end up with more opportunity than you have time or resources to fulfill. And you have to ask yourself, what opportunities lead me better to suit my mission? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So me and my wife did a lot of prayer. And, I mean, it took us a couple weeks to get to the point where we really had defined our mission. And that mission is basically 3 parts. One, we want to grow to our fullest potential. You know, we want to basically I want to be the best father, the best business leader, and the deepest spiritually closest to God I could possibly be. Right? I want to be those things at the highest levels. Right? 2, we want to grow. We want to give outrageously. You know, and then the third thing is we want to help others grow. So that became like a 3-part mission, and then it became the question of what opportunity leads us to do that more. Do we have more opportunity to grow, more opportunity to give, and more opportunity to help others grow by staying in this job, or do I have more opportunity doing that within the business? And it became pretty obvious that it was in the business. So made that decision, and pretty quickly when you make a decision like that, I feel like you see a return on it pretty quick. You know, like the next month, the business did like 40% more money than it did the month before. You know what I mean? And it's just like, okay, this is the right move, you know? But I feel like anytime I've had really big, hard decisions like that, immediately following it, it's just like, okay, you made the right move, you know? But it was just really hard. Yeah, confirmation is what I'm trying to say. But it was just really hard in the moment, you know, those moments to make those decisions.
So you started out just cleaning pools. What services did you expand to?
So, yeah, I told myself I was going to be laser focused, and I'm trying to be, okay? That's like the ultimate thing with business is like what gets you into business is not like keep you in business. You know, it's like having a lot of energy and like you need it, but like being distracted and like jumping on this, jumping on that gets you in business real quick because you're like, oh, yeah, I got lawns. Oh, I can do that pool. You know what I mean? Like, that's great, and it got me to where I am. But if I could sit here and, like, add products to the business like nobody's thinking, and it might make me a little bit more money, a little bit more money. But if you just focus on one thing, you're going to be able to grow that exponentially better and quicker than if you just keep adding more, you know? So I told myself at the beginning, I kind of knew that going in. I knew that was like a probable thing that could happen with me. So I just told myself I'm not doing nothing but service and clean pools. Pretty quickly, I learned that I just have to repair them because
It's part of it.
it's just part of it. You know what I mean? You just can't get away from it. You know, in that business. You know what I mean? When you're talking like local service business, it's hard to like people just expect. So, you're not going to lose customers not repairing stuff. It's like, oh, get that other pool company to do your, do your pump motor,
And they end up
like, why don't they
stealing
just
you.
service it too?
Yeah.
So yeah, we did repairs for a long time, and so we stuck to that for about a year and a half, and then we got kind of just suckered ourselves into doing liners. So, I mean, liners has proven to be another very needed product around here. Apparently, I mean it's exponentially grown for sure. First year we did 88 liners, and then this year, I mean, we've already done more than 88, and it's not even July yet.
Yeah.
So we'll do like probably 200 plus this year.
Wow.
And we're doing 2 a day right now, so we're rocking and rolling. But, I mean, we're not adding anything else, I swear.
So it's cleaning.
So yeah, we have 3 core products. So we have the liners, like liners and small renovations. So there's a range of small little products that go with the liner that we do little upsales that aren't like super. They don't weigh the business down.
Yeah.
Like we can fulfill pretty quick. We obviously do repairs, so we just fix anything on a pool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, pretty much anything at this point, we got it in the van. Or we got 2 vans, so in the vans. They got it low down. And then service, and then we service pools. So we just clean them, and that's just a logistic challenging thing. Just having trained people in the backyard when we say we're going to be there is the hardest part. You know?
Is it weekly or bi-weekly?
Every single one of them's weekly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We service, like I said, we're getting close to 400. I think we're like 376 as of today. So we're closing in on 400. We're just trying to get to 1,000. That's our goal.
How many years in are you right now?
So we started, the first year that I started in June was 20, let me think. I got to like trace it backwards. So last year was the first year we did liners. The year before that. So we're 3 years on the dot right now.
3 years?
Yep.
So in 3 years, you've grown close to 400 pools.
So 3 years, we've got about 400 pools. We'll do about 200 liners. And then we got 2 repair vans going pretty much full time.
That's crazy how quick it grew.
And I'm telling you, brother, like, I mean, it's just literally there's just so much demand. It's crazy, you know. So we're just trying to scale as quick as we can and keep the service tight. And, you know, it's a quality thing. Like, I'm glad to say, like, I feel like our quality is better than it was. You know, there's been ups and downs to it, you know, but, like, at the start, it was like, all right, because we didn't really know what we were doing. And then it was, like, got a little better because Rick figured out what he was doing. Then it got a little bit worse because we had to teach people how to do what they were doing, you know. And then we kind of got a core group, and then it was kind of like up and down because it was just always something. You know what I mean? That year. And then at the very end of last year, we hired Cole, our service manager, and then the quality went really good. And then this year was just been like rapid expansion, you know? So it's like we've had to learn this year how to train people properly.
Yeah.
Because we had so many gaps in training. This guy didn't know how to adjust that salt system. You know, this guy didn't know how to reset the timer over there. And this guy didn't really know how to do this thing. He just kind of thought he knew, but he didn't really know. And you have to really learn how do we make sure this person's fully trained on the other side of this. So, like, just creating a training program, you know, it's a lot more tedious and tiring than you think, even with the invention of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It's still, like, super, you know, intense to do that. And, you know, now we're at a point where we just really have to define our system. So we spent literally, like, 6 hours today in a meeting just drawing squares on a Excel document pretty much and connecting dots, saying, what does this person do? Okay, then what if it happens here, then what happens, you know? So we're at that point now, and then really fleshing out job descriptions and SOPs and stuff and standardizing what we're doing now is super important to moving into the future.
For sure.
So that's where we're at now.
So what does your role right now look like?
I get sucked into the business. I try not to, you know, but I can because I'm just like care. But so now what I'm fighting to do is at this point, you know, at first you're like leading people, which was kind of my comfort zone because that's what I did. Like at the church, I just like led teams. It was easy, at least to some degree. And then leading leaders, then you're leading leaders, which is a little bit more of my sweet spot actually, because at the church I had like a couple teams, I had a couple leaders, key people, and I just really leaned on them, and they really made stuff happen. And I just came in whenever something was just not working, and just helped make it happen. But now I'm like leading people who are leading people who are leading people. It's like a different thing. You know what I mean? So you're like trying to see that person. You're trying to like look at yourself like from a third point of view. Like, okay, what is this? What did I need whenever I was in this position? You know?
Yeah.
It's like I got a leader who's got 2 leaders under him who are leading like 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're leading 5 apiece or whatever. And you're looking at that and you're saying, what do I need to tell him to help him lead these people? You know?
So I guess you're kind of you're learning how to develop leaders.
Yeah, for sure. And you learn real quick that like, I've always been pretty heavy on like, let me just hire leaders, you know, and I missed it, 9 times out of 10, but you know, you get lucky, you hired some good people, but there's been times where I've thought, you need chiefs and Indians. You know, I've hired a lot of people thinking they're chiefs that just ended up being Indians.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's fine. It's like we need people to make the job, make the deal happen. Then we need people to clean the pools. Like it ain't got to be like, you know, Nick Saban. You know, so but you hired some people thinking they're Nick Saban, and they end up just cleaning pools, and that's fine. Like and I love every single person on the team, but you do need leaders to make the thing work. You know, and there's been times where I've kind of been like, hire some Indians. And then really quick you realize you need some leaders. So you always, I feel like you're, to the end of your oblivion, you're always going to be in a leadership deficit, unless you went while you're scaling. At least that's my perspective right now. Is we're just growing so quick that it's hard to get the deck stacked deep, and that's going to be key to maintaining quality. So that's why we're not adding any more products, because you can't take all your good people and throw them in another department.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we've continually done, is take everybody good at this cleaning department and throw them into another department because they're good. Like, oh, yeah, you go do repairs. Oh, yeah, you go do liners. Oh, yeah, you go do this. And the cleaning teams, like we've been doing this for years now, and everybody on the cleaning teams is their first year cleaning pools. And it's like, it probably shouldn't be how this is. So, and the people we have now are amazing. So it's just like we can't change anything right now because we need y'all to be experienced next year, and we need the experience to stack up.
Would you say that's been the biggest challenge with your business, is handling the growth, or what would you say the biggest challenge has been?
It's definitely not a sales constrained business. It's an operationally constrained business. So it's been how quickly can we reliably scale, and we've gotten lucky that like every time we've taken a bet, it's paid off bigger than we thought. Every time we've like, oh, I think we can take on this many pools this year, we take on 35% more. And that's been the same this year. We thought, hey, if we do 160 liners, we'd be happy. And then we're going to be 200 plus, Should have took the 200 plus bet from the get-go. I'd be in a better spot right now. But it's been the challenge of, at this stage in the business, it's the challenge of, you got 2 liner teams. How are they both doing it the same way? Oh, yeah. And how do we doing it to where every single time it works perfect? Not when we run into this one thing, we have a hiccup and the liner leaks, or like you get a wrinkle in it. Like, how does every time we make sure there's no wrinkle and there's no leaks every single time, no matter what? Quality and then if control. We get a leak, then it's like, wow, wait, what? Instead of like, oh, okay, now we got to do this and the other. It's just like, how do we guarantee that the quality is good every single time? And, we've, just like anything else, you have your ups and downs, and we have to. But I feel like now, really, in every single department, because we kind of got our feet back under us from our initial below of growth this year, really starting to catch up, and the quality's back on the rise, which is where I want it to be.
Is that a challenge for you as well? Like the seasonal aspect of pools? Do you lose a lot of clients in the winter and then gain a lot in the summer, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I would say trend-wise, month over month, we're always growing. Or if you look at it on a 3-month trend, we're always growing. Yeah. But In October, you're definitely going to like lose a bunch of pools, you know. Every year we've lost a smaller percentage than we did the year before. I think the first year was like 18%. So then the next year I was like, all right, I'm budgeting in my mind for 20%, you know. And then we lost like 14%. You know what I mean? Then last year we lost like 8%. So I'm going to like say we're going to lose 12 this year, and we're going to plan for that, you know, and then see what percentage we lose. And then that's where we'll be staffed and where we'll be positioned. This way we're not like blowing our budget out with payroll or something going into the fall. So the business will be stable, you know.
And it seems you've always bounced back with more the fall and spring.
No, traditionally we grow. So say we lose that 8%, traditionally we'll grow more than 8% even throughout the winter, you know, into the fall. So if you lose 8% of your pools, say you lose 40 or whatever at this scale, that'd be 10% of 400. Traditionally we'd be up those 40 going into, or at least matching going into January. So, because you're always growing a little bit.
Yeah.
There's people who are just like, I'm sick of all these leaves. So, and you know, another problem with pool businesses traditionally is churn. You have just as many people canceling as you joining, you know. But we've just been, I think it's just, we have good customer service. Like Joe does a really good job, like following up the customer, and we try really hard at like really fulfilling on our promises. So we don't have like a huge churn issue where we're losing as many as we're gaining. Like we're not losing 14 and gaining 14. It's like we may lose 1 and gain 25, or lose 1 and gain 14. You know, so our churn's always been super low, and that's helped us with the growth because in a lot of pool businesses, I mean, it's nothing to lose 25% of your pools. I mean, that's just crazy to me. like it's like, yeah, you gain 300 pools and you only netted, you know, 75 of them.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, yeah.
How many employees are you currently at?
I think I'd have to double check. I think we're like at 22.
22?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
So there are 8 guys, 8 service techs, in Cole. So there's 9 on the service team.
Mm-hmm.
There's 5 on the liner team. What's that? 14. And then there is 1, 2, 3. Well, there's a part-time guy who does some service. He does help with inventory a little bit. So that's another guy. And then there's 3 in the office, and then Joe, and then me. Whatever that adds up to. But it's like 20-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably missed somebody. Oh, and then the repair team, too.
What values does your business stand on?
We have 4 core. So we have our vision, our mission, and then our 4, I guess, core principles. You know, our values. What would we say? Our vision it's not really a short condensed statement. It's actually a little bit. It's like a paragraph, but it's really that we just want to build a business that is exceptional at what we do and is basically so organized and so straight ahead that like the customer just feels it on the other side. That they just know that, one, that puts them at ease, but know that they always know what their next step is. So that's kind of our vision. That's like what we're trying to create. Our mission is like how you get there, right? So our mission statement is we grow our team by growing our people. We grow our business by growing our team, which is our people. That's just fundamentally what I believe is like, if we just grow, I ask myself the question, if we do the mission, it's unreasonable to believe we won't accomplish the vision, right? If we just grow our people, there's just no way that we're not going to have an exceptional business, you know? So that's our mission. And then obviously a lot of that's rooted in my background, you know, just being in the ministry. But our values, to get to your question, are grit. So when the going is tough, like tough, keep going. You know, that's like a huge part of what we're doing. Like if somebody doesn't have grit, they're not going to last. You know, and it happens. You hire somebody, I think it's just all like, clean a pool is how hard can it be? You know what I mean? And it's like 99 degrees outside.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Can't get in the pool.
Yeah, for sure. Can't get in the pool. Maybe on accident happen. Character, obviously, you know, you're sending somebody in somebody's backyard.
Yeah.
You know, you got to have character. You just got to be able to do what you say you're going to do and be who you say you're going to be, you know? Because these guys literally are just, you got to trust them. I mean, hey, here's, you know, a nice shiny truck and a bunch of equipment. Go do the right thing, you know? And, you know, I like to tell the people, it's like, it's not like, are you going to go empty the pump basket when it's easy? It's like, how about when it's 943 degrees outside? This is your 14th pull because we had a long week and we're behind because it rained, and it's nobody's fault, but hey, you know, whatever. Or because your boss made a bad decision and now you got a bunch of extra pulls. I mean, hey, what about that? And you're hot, you're tired, you're out of water. You just ran out of water in your cooler because you didn't stock it or whatever. And you're at a pool that you just know the pump doesn't want to prime back up because it's above the water line, you know? And are you going to empty the pump basket then? You know what I mean? Like you say you're supposed to empty the pump basket. Are you going to empty the pump basket? That's the question of character, you know? That's not a life or death thing. You know, it's just like a casual scenario that's pretty realistic, you know? It's just like, hey, like when you're hot and tired and exhausted and really thirsty, are you actually going to like just do this one small little subliminal task that like might cause you more pain? If, you know, that's probably not that big of a deal that no one will probably ever know, you know? And that's like character, you know? And then fun. I mean, we ain't trying to do this if we're having a good time, bro. I mean, I have done that at certain times. This has been completely miserable to have this business. You know what I mean? Like 100%. Like people just, customers being horrible, people on the team just dragging you down. You know, there's been times where it's just like, what am I doing right now? Like, holy Toledo, this is horrible. You know, like this is extremely painful. Yeah, I just ain't trying to do it like that. You know what I mean? So if you're not there to have a good time, bro, I don't really, like, if you're bringing me down, then we got a problem. You know what I mean? Let's have a good time. Like, let's do this together. It should be fun, you know? And I'm not saying it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows every day, but, like, I mean, at least what we can control, let's try to make it good, you know? So grit, character, fun, and then humility. Because, I mean, it's all about growth, interpersonally in the business. And it's like if you don't have any humility, you can't grow. You know, there's no path to growth without feedback. You know, and we got to be able to take and receive feedback if we're going to grow. You know, and that goes for everybody on the team, including myself. You know, like I want to know what I'm doing wrong and I want to fix it. You know, we've had people who join the team and they've had like 10 bosses that just have sucked their entire life and like never listened to anything they said, you know, and they probably had the right way of doing it. And I can tell you, I ain't trying to do that. I want you to tell me the way you want it to be done because I want to get it done quick. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I ain't trying to, like, preserve my ego on this thing. You know, I'm trying to have a good, well-run business, right? So I want the good feedback. You know, I don't want me sitting here in my office or whatever conspiring the way I feel like the pool should be brushed. Mm-hmm. How about you tell me the way the pool needs to be brushed, buddy? You got the brush in your hand, you know? So, you know, people work in environments like that their whole lives because they got insecure bosses or whatever, you know, and then they come here, right, and they don't understand that. And, I mean, hey, bro, I mean, and they get bitter because things aren't perfect. And it's like, I'm just trying to grow and get better. You know what I mean? And it's hard for people to adapt to that type of work environment when they have worked in, like, the opposite of their entire life. But humility is super important, I feel like.
Yeah.
Got to get that ego out of here.
How do you prioritize your walk with Jesus with having such a busy schedule and all that goes into the business?
That's a funny question. No, I think me and Tara were actually talking about this yesterday. How do we prioritize our family time? How do we prioritize all that? You know, and because I got 2 little daughters, and I don't want to miss out on their little childhoods for a business. You know, and it comes down to this, like, if I just gave up everything and did not prioritize my marriage, kids, relationship with the Lord, any of that, and just said, I'm optimizing for business growth, it's like, yeah, this business could probably be bigger and better right now. You know what I mean? And probably make more money. But it's like, at what cost? You know, and I think that for different people, there's different things they're probably willing to give up than others, you know, and some people give up their family, you know, they'll give up their relationship with the Lord or whatever for whatever, you know, but for me, that's not it. And so the question, I guess, how you balance, and for me and Sierra, I think we said this yesterday, it's not balance, it's boundaries, is the way we put it, you know, where's the boundary? And boundaries move. You know, they're not like fixed. And at certain times, me and Sierra need more time together than others. And at certain times, the kid's got something going on in the middle of the day. You know what I mean? And at certain times, the business is struggling. You know, and it's about energy allocation. And if I'm using 100% of my energy at work and I have 0% energy when I get home, then that's wrong. You know, and that's going to lead me not to where I want to go. But if I can build a business in a way where I still have energy, then I might be able to give you more effort to it than I could before, because I'm getting more. Let me put it this way: if I can focus on what really matters when I'm at work and work better, I'm going to get more work per output of time or per unit of energy, right? So I can get more work done with less energy than maybe I could have a year ago when I was less focused, you know? So when I'm at work, I put my head down and I try to work, you know what I mean? And I try to work on what actually matters to move the business forward, not just everything that I feel like is wrong in the business, you know? And when I do that, the business is getting better and I still have energy left over at the end of the day, you know? But at the same time, sometimes when the business is struggling, it needs more work, it needs more time, you know? And in those times that happens, sometimes the business gets more time, you know. But if my marriage is struggling and the business is struggling, I'm going to choose my marriage. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's a good way of putting it, or if I really communicated that as strongly as I'd like. But I think it's more about boundaries than it is just achieving this perfect balance where, like, from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. or to 5 p.m. at night, this is all my. If you could put it on a Google Calendar, it'd be great. You know what I mean? If you could slot your family time in there and like get it all perfect and like this amount of time allocation checks all the boxes, but life isn't like that. And I think the more we try to confine life to a box, the more we're going to struggle, and the same thing with your spiritual walk, I feel like every single day as I learn about the business, I'm learning about the Lord, but I still got to read my Bible, but God also speaks to us and walks with us through what we're doing, and I feel like the more I get into managing people and learning customers and learning the product, the more I learn about people, the more I learn about God, the more I learn about human psychology at the same time, we were talking today and building one of our systems for like work orders or liners or something. And we're talking about who is going to have the phone conversations with the customer when, like which person. And like sometimes like logistically it made sense more for this person to call him. But like emotionally it made more sense for this person to call him because I'd called him 6 times before. So they just had more weight with the customer, and it's like sometimes it's just a psychology problem, not a people problem. But all that like stems from who God created us to be as people. And like, we crave relationships and trustworthiness and all that stuff. So I don't know. Kind of went on a tangent there, but
no, that was good. How has your view on success changed because of your faith?
I think before, this is pretty funny. I think before, like my view of success was, I don't know if I really thought about what my view of success was until I started the business, and then I felt like I had to define it. To me, I feel like success is, hey, we're going on this mission, and I want to achieve the mission, right? And the mission is just a journey, but I want to go as deep into that journey as I possibly can. And on the other side, when I look back at the end of my life, I just want the people who know me the most to be the people who love me the most, and not the other way around. I've had a series of, like that first pastor at my old church, and some other leaders in my life who have like really let me down, that like I really believed in, and then you kind of see on the other side of the mirror or the other side of the glass and realize that it wasn't what you thought it was, and that can be extremely disappointing, putting people on a pedestals, just to realize that like they shouldn't have been. Which I don't think anybody needs to be on a pedestal, really. It's just God, but we do it as people. You think, oh, this guy's got it figured out, I just really want to be a person that when you figure out who I actually am, you're not disappointed. You're actually maybe inspired, So for me, like I said, success looks like whenever the people who love me the most, or the people who know me the most, people love me the most. I think John Maxwell has that definition or something. I didn't make that up, but I really like relate to that because I just really want to be an authentic leader who does, says, and is who they say they are.
What's something that God's teaching you right now?
I feel like I've been in a series of. I feel like right now specifically we're kind of stepping into a new season, but kind of like rounding out this last season that we were in. I feel like the Lord really has been teaching us a lot about like boundaries. Kind of like what I was talking about before with like managing the quote unquote balance of life, but also just with people, like who gets your time, who doesn't, and I don't think people inherently believe like or understand how busy you get when you have a business. It's like I feel like our business is relatively small, but like it just sucks every little moment all the time you have out of your everything, it's like, and it just, because when you're at home, you're still, you're not like working, but like it's all there. You're thinking about it, you're trying not to, but.
What does good leadership look like to you?
When I first got into business, I thought business was just leadership. I was like, oh, it's going to be easy. I quickly realized there's a lot I don't know. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I still don't know a lot. And I had to redefine kind of what my idea of what leadership was and what it means. I remember actually having a long conversation with Alex Dickerman about, all right, let's ask the question, what does it mean to be a leader? And what's the difference between leadership and manipulation? Because you start looking, I think me and you had this conversation one time.
Talked about that.
Yeah, because it's like a lot of the same actions, quote unquote, that you would read in a leadership book, people just manipulate, people use the same tactics, quote unquote, and it's like just because you know the tactics doesn't make you a good leader. What makes you a good leader, And I heard a little snippet or something of, I can't remember his name, but the CEO of NVIDIA. It was a clip of someone interviewing him, and they were describing him as like micromanager, like blah, blah, blah. It was basically describing him micromanaging employees. And you're just like, that doesn't sound like a good leader. You know what I mean? But then it cuts to him. He's like, that's exactly sounds like me. And you're like, what? Like, why is he proud of this? And you're just like immediately like, all right, disregard. But then you listen to him, and you're like, okay, well, maybe he's got something. Maybe I should consider this. But he said, yeah, doing something exceptional shouldn't be easy. It should be hard. I think one of the words that they use was hard to work for. But it's like, yeah, we're trying to do something exceptional. We're trying to do something great. We're trying to create innovative products that have never been done before. Like it should be hard. And yeah, I should be getting in the nitty gritty. And yeah, we should be caring about the details. And, it's like, what are we trying to do? And you kind of get to the point where you start saying, ask yourself the question, okay, what makes a good leader? What makes it not? And, is a good leader somebody who just everybody on their team's happy? It's a good leader who's somebody who everyone on their team feels like they have purpose, but it's like, what if everyone on your team feels like they have purpose, but you're not accomplishing anything?
Yeah.
What if everybody on your team's happy, but you're miserable because you're running around trying to make everybody else happy? What does that mean to be a good leader? And for me, I guess the way I've defined it, at least at this point in my life, is a good leader is somebody who can take people to the destination that they said they were going to go to, and that'll probably change, I'll probably like immediately lead us think about that and change my idea. But right now that's what I'm going with. And yeah, I'm trying to do it in a way that I feel like everyone has purpose and that they're valued. But I'm trying to do that by actually valuing people and by, you know, actually trying to get people jobs that they're good at. You know, so I feel like when you do those things, you end up with people who feel like they have purpose and feel like they're valued if you actually value people. You know, and that goes back to the whole authenticity thing with who I want to be as a person. Is just I want to, and even in my life, like me and my wife, like what do we actually want to do? Is we want to actually care about people. I want to actually love people. I want to actually try to create good products. I want to actually build a business that actually does the things it says it's going to do. Like it's all rooted in like authenticity and being real, you know? And I want to actually care about my team, and I want to actually try to get the best out of everybody, you know? And guess what? When you do all those things, you end up with an actually better business,
Yeah.
you know? But I think a lot of those things that people are optimizing for are just byproducts if you just do the real thing. And that's like go after a goal. And I'm sure the people at NVIDIA are probably not as miserable. Maybe they aren't. I don't know. Maybe I'm really misquoting here. I'm not basing my whole leadership philosophy on this guy, but it did challenge my thought, you know. But, you know, I'm sure the people who are driving toward a bigger purpose, even if they're being micromanaged a little bit, are a little bit okay with it because it's like, hey, well, you're right, I didn't do that right.
Yeah.
If they're humble enough. So.
How do you keep your team aligned with the vision and goals that you set?
Yeah, I feel like right now that's one of the biggest things. It's about establishing clarity. And I'm a person, like I don't need a lot of direction. I don't need a lot of someone to line it out for me. I don't need somebody to do A plus B equals C. You give me A, and I'll figure out what B and C. You know, give me C, and I'll figure out whatever equation equals C. You know, so for me, I don't need that. And I feel like traditionally, leaders default to like leading people the way they want to be led. So I just lead with compute ambiguity. I'm like, hey, I just want all the pools to be clean. Go do it. You know, I don't care how you do it. Just get it done. That's not the way people operate for the most part. So I learned that one. So now as we get to kind of this 20-person plus organization, it's more about how do we establish the culture and how do I give people the tools and the training they need to feel like they're empowered to do their job well. So what that looks like right now is kind of like the nitty-gritty. What does everybody do when and why? And just the dumb stuff like job descriptions and standard operating procedures and making sure everything's organized and everybody has what they need when they need it and before they need it. And that's not any fun work. And that's why, you know, I just want to go start building pools and opening pool stores, you know, because it sounds new and exciting, but the boring work and like that is what matters. So that's what builds the business. So that's what we're doing.
Got to have the foundation first.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you know, we got good guys, got good this and the other, and I could just bet on the fact that it's just going to work out, or we could just build systems that are going to produce the type of employees. You know, it's like I can operate like I'm operating, and like 1 out of 20 employees could work out because 1 out of 20 might have the right or a compatible level of get it done with me, you know, or I can make, you know, 8 out of 10 work out by just having good training and hiring good people. So if we just optimize for, it's a little bit cheaper and quicker if we just optimize for training and hiring. So I think a lot of people in small business, you hear them say, oh, there's not good people out there. No, yada, yada. But in reality, there's like some really good people out there that just need a little bit more clarity and a little bit better of an outline and a really clear line of here's your left and right boundary. Here's what I need you to do. Here's what I don't want you to do.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just really trying to figure out how to define that and train that without being a jerk.
Yeah.
So, or being a pushover, more likely.
What role has your family played on your business venture?
Me and my wife are very complementary, and that plays a huge role into who I am. You know, and honestly, I mean, when me and Sarah met, like I was extremely introverted. You know, you wouldn't think I'd be selling nothing. You know what I mean? But she'd be trying to get me, she'd like nudging me, like talk to people. at the wedding. Can you say hey? Like, this is my whatever. I've known since I was in 3rd grade. But so now I'm a little bit more extroverted than I used to be. That's probably her fault. And and she's paved the way for a lot. Like her willing and openness just to be like, yeah, let's give it a go. I mean, if she wasn't like gave me any sort of confirmation or on a chance, I'd have the confidence to step it out. So in a lot of ways, she's been like my confidence. She is like an amazing mother to our kids. You know what I mean? She literally loves them with all of her being, and she is just like the whole dang package, and I mean, I tell my wife all the time, I won the wife lottery. Like, I did not know what I was doing at 21 years old or 20 years old when I proposed to her, but just got real lucky with that one. That was none of my doing, at all. So she's legit, and she cares a lot, and that's I think one of the biggest things you could do for your business is to get out of customer service, because when you're in customer service, you're the owner, you just get too caught up in what's going on to like make actual clear decision. She gets in there and she makes that crap happen, like customer service too. Whenever they're slacking, she gets dragged into it just as much as I do because she cares, and that's like that's like fun. It's like seeing her care about it too, and I really feel like we're doing life together now more than we ever have, and that's extremely exciting too.
How do you unplug or recharge outside of work in the business?
Yeah. Now I feel like getting a little bit better at that, before I used to, and like ever since, like I used to just like work until I burnt out and then just like pass out, wake up, oh, okay, reset, But now I feel like understanding the balance a little bit of like not doing that. And a lot of that for me has to do with not, I used to just go, like last year, it's just like, let's just go put in the dang liners. We're just getting in there, making it happen. That's the season the business we're in. But now the business not only needs me to be stepped back a little bit, needs me to like focus on the finances and how we do what we do and like systematizing in all that stuff more now. But it also, the business, it lives off your money, it lives off cash, and it lives off people's energy, and I got to make sure I'm giving it the energy from me that it needs in the areas that it needs it and not the areas it doesn't, and so I try not to just give my energy away in the business to areas that don't really need my energy, just areas I'm getting nosy in and like areas. I got to buy some dang AirPods with some noise canceling because I'd be sitting in my office and hear them yapping about customers, this is going on, like managing this crisis, and I had to go in there and like just be a part of it because I just felt like I needed to help give my input, and like they got it, bro. I just put my noise canceling headphones on, do my thing, and realized nobody even bothered me. They already had it. I'm just wasting energy in there, stressing myself out over something that they all got handled. They're gonna do better than I can anyway. So why would I go get involved? It's like I walk in there like, I know. It's like, okay, I'll go somewhere else. But and that's where like Joe, he's just a baller. Cole, they all like, they just crush it. Rick, and they all just know what they're doing. So there's not really a point in me going and getting in there. Other than whenever I really am needed, and I just need to be available and ready when that time comes. But to answer the question too, I feel like what I've still done is I've dialed back, but I find myself slowly getting drained until I just need a vacation or something. So me and my wife just went on vacation for a week, and we just got back. So now we're feeling fresh.
What's one piece of advice you'd give or wisdom you'd give aspiring entrepreneurs?
I think that my experience thus far and what I've heard from others that are further in the game than me is I heard a quote one time. It was like, the most successful people in business are not people who are smarter than others. It's people who can endure pain longer. And I think that in business you encounter a lot of different types of pains that you didn't expect to encounter. And I think that, especially depending on the type of person you are, maybe some people just don't care and they're cold-blooded killers. I mean, hey, more power to you. You know, I care about people. So, you know, the people problems seem to be the ones that hurt the most me, you know, but other people probably look at their bank account and just sweat. You know, I'm just like, it'll work out. So for me, I feel like the biggest thing that I probably didn't expect was just the amount of like consistent pain and struggle that there is, you know. And I think that people just don't need to underestimate the level of constant pain it takes, you know. And I don't think it's gonna stop. I think it's just gonna get worse. You know, you got bigger problems. You know, people start trying to sue you or whatever. I'm sure that's not any fun. You know, but you know, stuff like that, and people misunderstanding you. People, you know, I'm sure like there's people who probably worked for me who could listen to this podcast and be like, that's not who that guy is. You know what I mean? Just because they have a different version of me that they maybe that I was communicating, you know, at some point, you know, that, you know, there's another point of like leadership or idea that we want to talk about. Like if I want to be the person that when somebody sees the other side of the picture and they're not disappointed, you know, maybe I should paint a picture that actually looks like me too. Right. You know, and that just goes into how you communicate who you are and what you're trying to do. You know, and that's another challenge. Just really business. It's just communicating clarity. And I guess painting that picture of what you're trying to be and what you're trying to create for people.
For sure.
And what that role may be, what this product looks like, you know, or whatever.
Saltwater pools or chlorine pools?
You know, I'm biased because I'm biased to what makes my life easier, you know. No, I actually do believe, and as a company, we do believe that saltwater pools are better. Because, and y'all will probably agree with this, you know, because you're around this type of woman, like I am. Ain't nobody in this day and age want to swim in a bloodbath of chemicals, all right? Let's just be honest. Okay. I ain't trying to do it. Ain't nobody else trying to do it.
Yeah.
If I could offer organic pool service, I'm sure we crush it, all right? But I've looked into it. Buying lemon juice in mass is not quite... let's just say it's not, you know, financially feasible, but at least right now. So, you know, I would... if I didn't have to dump muriatic acid in a pool, you know, I mean, I wouldn't. But, you know, a chlorine pool, you got a stable, small amount of chlorine in the pool all the time in a salt pool. In chlorine pools, you got just got like high spikes of chlorine up and down all the time. And I just don't want to be swimming in like 15 parts per million of chlorine or plus.
Yeah.
You know, like we went to this hotel the other day. You got to do a smell test. You
Yeah,
dip
you
your
can just
hand in that
smell it,
water
yeah.
and you just put it to your nose and you're like,
Nope.
oof, that's 20 right there. You know what I mean? You got like calibrated nose like this one. You're like, that's a little high, you know? I get in that water. So I lean towards salt just to keep that chlorine as low as possible. So we're not just like swimming in, you know, 10 part per million chlorine. Just ain't trying to do it. Just want that low chlorine, minimum amount of treatment, you know? That's how we try to roll.
Liner or no liner?
Liner or gunite?
Yeah.
Hey, fiberglass is what I'd say.
Fiber.
Yeah, left
Really?
field over here.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. A liner pool, the good thing about it is you can completely trash it and just fix it in like 14 minutes. You know, like one day we can get in there and that thing's going to look better. A gunite pool, you completely trash it, you're spending 20, 30 grand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, hey, that's some money. So, now, I mean, a liner's up there. I mean, I think, you know, between $3,000 to $6,000 or north of that if things get bad. But yeah, I mean, a liner pool, you can turn around quick, but you're going to have to get that liner every 6 to 8 years, you know. Gunite pool, you know, it could last forever. You don't mess one thing up.
Something cracks or something.
You mess one thing up, like you just let your chemistry get whacked. You let that thing turn green a while and some leaves and acorns get in there. It's going to be pitted the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Like, unless you get that thing replastered. So that's the problem with the gunite. But, I mean, we're just in a vinyl heavy market too. So we just see mostly vinyl. But fiberglass, hey, they got like lifetime warranties, bro. I mean, I can argue with that. I mean, the downside to a fiberglass pool is that they're small. You can't get them in huge sizes, and then fiberglass people hear that and they're like, "Oh, you can get a big one." But I mean, bro, we're in Alabama. All right, people got like 5-acre backyards. You know what I mean? You're throwing like a tiny little 16 by 40 pool in the backyard, and people want like that 20 by 40. You know, they want that big old pool in there. And I mean, if we're like in Atlanta or Birmingham or something, you're dropping this tiny little pool in someone's backyard. It's like, oh wow, pool. It looks huge because it's the whole backyard. But you got like 5-acre backyard. You throw a little tiny little fiberglass in there. You're like, what the heck? You know, so that's the downside. That's why I feel like fiberglass is not a huge market here. But if we were to install, I would try to sell some just to see if we could get it to go. But that's my theory on why fiberglass isn't big around here. But it's definitely bigger everywhere else other than right where we're at. So I don't know why. That's my theory on why that's the case. But
well, thank you for coming on. Glad you could
you
come be a part of the podcast. I think it was a great episode.
I think we had a good time with y'all.